Hello and welcome to another edition of Reminiscences. Today we have the special pleasure to welcome to the program a distinguished professor of education. I think the only Nigerian I know who has been vice chancellor of 3 different universities, that of Benin, and that of Lesotho in Southern Africa, and that of Nasarawa. I believe that's the University of Kefi, which is in Nasarawa State. Professor Adamu Baikie has been in the university system for all his life, professor of education and teacher and administrator. He is now 90 years old, so it's our special privilege to have this discussion with him and to welcome Prof to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes. Let me start by asking you something about your origin. When you talk about your father and your family, you say they come from Gabas.
Yes.
Now Gabas
It's Gabas.
to the younger generation, they will wonder. Gabas means, I believe, east.
Yes.
Or thereabout. So what is Gabas? Is it Maiduguri? Is it Chad? Or is it even much beyond that?
Well, Gabas, generally speaking, in the north here, as you very well know, when you run into people and they ask about Gabas, the tendency is for people to think about Borno or Chad. My father's origin, he is a Shua. He was a Shua.
Yes.
And he came from that area known as Bagarmi district of Chad and came into Borno at Mafoni,
Right.
from where he found himself into very many parts of Nigeria.
Right.
And officially, he was, and his family, his entire family, officially recorded as citizens of Kano.
Right. So, from Gabas to Kano, I mean, how you are like an immigrant family? Did you become accepted as part of Kano community, having moved from somewhere else?
Absolutely. We are accepted and we have documents to that effect. And there is no other place we know other than Kano anyway. All the children were born there, except probably myself, who was born in this area here. So we owe an allegiance, a very strong one, to Kano, and I have been very actively involved in very many activities in Kano. I was chairman of the Kano State Urban Development Board for very many years. And I was also a member of a number of committees in Kano. And you couldn't have been so recognized if you are not given the rights and privileges of a citizen. So to that extent, we have, I have no doubt in my mind as to. But we never, however, we never doubted the fact that we came from Bagarmi.
Yes.
We've never doubted it, and we belong to a lot of organizations of Bagarmi people.
Right.
Both in Kano, in Kaduna, in Abuja, all over the place.
Right.
But when it comes to home, it's Kano.
Yes. Many people will know that you are Christian from Kano.
Yes.
And the assumption will be that Kano being a largely Muslim community, there will be some disadvantage or discrimination in growing up. Did you experience things like that?
To be honest with you, personally, no. I don't know about my father because he worked with the Kano Native Authority for very many years. And if he had any serious discrimination, I would have known.
Yes.
He was very close. He worked in the Madaki's office. He worked in the Galadima's office. He worked with Abdullahi Bayero. So these are
the former
people,
emir.
Yeah, the former emir, Abdullahi Bayero. If he had any experiences that could have driven him out of that system by virtue of his being a Christian, we would have suffered the effect of that. One feature that really affected him but didn't bother him was that he never went to work on Friday. At that time, the Kano Native Authority was a very powerful authority. And you don't go to work in the office on Fridays, but you have to go to work on Sundays.
Which is a religious day for him.
Which is my father's religious day. But what happened was that he accepted that and then used his Sunday evenings to go to church. And we at home would go to church in the morning. And he would, when he comes back, he would go to church in the evening. And that did not in any way interfere with his religious practices or his faith at all. And I don't believe, excuse me, I remember when he fell ill, the Galadima of Kano drove all the way from the city to come to Sabongari to see him. You see, and arranged for him to go to the hospital. That is how close he was with the hierarchy of Kano, Native Authority, the Emirate Council, and so to that extent, we suffered no deprivation whatsoever.
Tell us a little bit about your education. I know you were one of the early students of the Nigerian college here in Zaria.
Where do you want me to start from? Primary?
No. I would jump the primary to the more senior part of the...
Well, I went to middle school at Usasa. From there, I went to teacher training college here in Zaria. And after teacher training college, that is 49, 50, and 53 to 54. And I started as a teacher in the practicing school of the college here in Samaru. I was a headmaster there. Then in 1957, I was awarded the Northern Nigerian Scholarship. And that took me to the Nigerian College.
Here in Zaria?
Yeah, here in Zaria, where I spent 4 or 5 years, I think, because I studied art and art education. After I had finished that, I was posted to Bauchi as education officer. But before I took up the appointment, ABU had already been, I was immediately given a scholarship in 1962 as a graduate in training by ABU, and they sent me straight to the United States of America, where I did 2 years, did a master's degree, and came back in 1964 as an assistant lecturer. And I was made in charge of a department within the Faculty of Education. And by 1965, I was given another scholarship to go back to the United States. In fact, I had 2 scholarships. One British Commonwealth and the other one USAID. So the Vice Chancellor, who was then Professor Audu, advised me to go to America. So I went to America and came back, finished my program and came back January 1970. Immediately I came back, I was made head of Department of Education, and a year later, the Dean of Education.
As you now said, you spent most of your career as an academic in ABU.
Yes.
One of the curious things is that just at the time that you are one of the most senior academics,
Yes.
suddenly instead of being considered or appointed the vice chancellor, you were rather given another vice chancellorship in Benin, University of Benin. This must be a disappointment to you. This is a place where you grew up, where you became head of department and dean. Is this something that really bothered you that you didn't become vice chancellor of ABU?
No, not at all. The system as it worked at that time was that the university will nominate 3 people from the same university and recommend them for appointment to the same university. And the choice of who would be the vice chancellor is entirely left in the hands of the visitor to the university. So 3 of us were shortlisted, and I happened to be one of them. So ipso facto, I was considered suitable to be the vice chancellor of Ahmadu Bello University, along with 2 others. But when the names were sent to Lagos, at that time the headquarters capital remained in Lagos, and Obasanjo, General Obasanjo was head of state. So instead of picking any one of us to serve in ABU, he decided to experiment with us, so to say. So he sent me to Benin. He sent one other to Lagos.
Among the 3 of you?
Yes.
Yes.
And the 3rd person to Nsukka, all from the north, sent down to the south.
Yes.
And then he brought one person from Lagos to ABU.
Right.
One person from Nsukka to BUK.
Right.
Another person from Benin to Jos. So he scattered us, so to say. He scattered us.
Yes.
So it wasn't therefore a situation that made one to feel a sense of loss. But definitely it was one that raised some question in one's mind as to how you can manage yourself in a strange place like myself, in a strange place like Benin.
So how did you manage? I mean, it's a strange environment. Here is a northerner whose even qualification may not be taken for granted, given the politics of those days.
Okay, good question. Well, you know, my late wife said we are not going. She said, no. If you are going to Benin, that's it. I will remain here, because she was working in the bursary here. So I traveled to Kano to meet my father and say, this is what has happened, though. And this is how I feel about it. He said, you are a small boy. You shouldn't be that stupid. You are not the only professor in ABU or in Nigeria, and if you are singled out among so many to go and serve, all you need to do is brace up, go and give your best, and do the best you can to do a good job. So I came back to Zaria, met my wife, and said, look, I don't think we have any option. We better go. And we will have to resign ourselves to the wishes of God and see what will come out of it. So we left to Benin. We've never been there before. And at that time, Benin was virtually in turmoil. Students versus the vice chancellor and what have you. We stepped into that right away. And by God's providence and guidance, we were able to live through there. In fact, when I finished my first term, a delegation went to Lagos to say that I must be giving a new second term. That is the extent to which staying in Benin paid off some dividends, which I'm afraid is still, the dividend is still paying off up to today.
Right. You still maintain relation with the,
yes,
with the Benin community?
Oh yes, very much.
Yes.
Very much so.
I think your wife also was a bit resistant when you are appointed Vice Chancellor of the University of Lesotho. If I'm right, she wasn't comfortable going to another strange country so far away.
You're quite right. The first thing is that she doesn't like flying at all. She never liked flying. And there is no way, one of the funny questions she asked me, is there no road to Lesotho? Can we go by road,
Yes.
And I said, no, we can go by road, but it will take us about 2 years to get there. And she said, all right, let's go. We'll go and see how things work out.
Yes.
And the experience for her there also was very, very interesting and worthwhile.
Yes.
So she came to Lesotho happily, and we left there happily. Of course, you are one of those who settled us in Lesotho. I will never forget that.
Yes.
It was a good experience.
But how was your reception by the community there? Here is a Nigerian professor leading the only university in the country.
I saw many signs from the body language of the staff there. And my first meeting was with them was what Baikie would say, "See, don't look." And it wasn't as rousing and warm as one would expect. I was not too surprised about it, though. And my secretaries were a bit skeptical because they said I had made arrangement to bring secretaries from Nigeria, which means they would lose their jobs. I never did that. How could I have done that? But the hierarchy of the country, the King Musheshwe, may his rest in peace, the Permanent Secretary Education, Minister of Education, were the chief movers of contacting Nigeria to send them a vice chancellor, somebody to serve as a vice chancellor. Because the university was running virtually like a secondary school. So they needed somebody who could prop them up. So I was fairly well received later when they got to know that I have no other interest other than to run the university the way it should be run based on my previous experiences. So we got along very well later. Within a very short time, I didn't show any likeness for one thing or the other. I didn't touch their money. And I was alone. I was very, very discreet. And of course, you know as much as I'm saying now, because you spent some time with me there. I will never forget that experience you had with me over there. So things went on very well, and when it was time for me to come back after my first term, I didn't ask for renewal at all. They went to ask for me to be renewed, to be retained. So I spent 7 years in Lesotho. Yes.
One other unusual thing is that you are again given an opportunity to be Vice Chancellor for the third time. This is well after your retirement.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
Well, I was then Director, Institute of Education, ABU here on my return. And I got a letter from the governor of Nasarawa State inviting me to serve on a committee that he had set up to establish a university in Kefi. And I asked myself, where is Kefi? Never been. Probably I had the name, but I don't know where it's located. And I made a joke of it. And I didn't attend the meeting. But I sent one of my staff, a senior member of the staff of the institute, to represent me at the meeting. And he came back and wrote a report to me. And I read through the report, and then I saw the membership list of the committee established to prepare for the establishment of the university. So the second meeting, I went. And all subsequent meetings I attended until the blueprint was ready. And then we established an implementation committee. And I was made the chairman of the implementation committee by other members of the committee. Professor Onazi, then of ABU, was the overall chairman, and then I was made the chairman of the implementation committee. I had to submit the implementation strategy to the governor. So I went to see him along with members of the implementation committee, went upstairs, saw him, I gave him the report, and with all the pleasantries that one can put together. And he said, okay, let's go downstairs and have a group photograph to mark the occasion. So we went downstairs, had a group photograph. Then after the group photograph, he whispered to me, I would like to see you upstairs, please.
Again?
You see? I said, all right, sir. So I followed him. He said to me too, in Hausa, you have finished this work and you've left it here. Whom do you expect to implement them? I said, you are the governor and this is a state university. The choice is yours. He kept quiet for a while. He said, well, I'm afraid you have to be the one. I said, sir, this is a state university, and there may be many people from the state who are qualified to do this job. But if you insist on my taking it up, I would rather I took it up as interim administrator. He said, all right, it's all right, it's all right. You can be an interim administrator. It doesn't matter. I knew he had something up his sleeves which he did not reveal. About 4 months into my interim administratorship, he wrote a formal letter appointing me the Vice Chancellor. So that was how it happened.
And you did 2 terms.
Yes, I did 2 terms. In fact, but for the fact that I insisted and insisted on leaving, he could have added 2 more years on me, which would have been, he was not so sure who is going to take over from me and how whoever he took over from me will perform. And besides, he will also leave office. He was also sure who would be the next governor. So I had to leave anyway. And I was very, very, very well treated by him and the people of Kefi in general. So that's how I became the Vice Chancellor in Kefi.
Yeah. Now you are a retired professor.
Yes.
So what do you do really on what have been the activities that have kept you going since you retired?
Well, when I retired, I reported to my department at ABU, and the Dean of Education at that time happened to be my student. So he said he will give me some postgraduate students to supervise, and I'll continue to earn my salary as a professor of education. Well, in the course of that, I suddenly got an invitation from Chief Ibinedio of Benin City.
Okada University.
He said he sent a big limousine, Cadillac. And you know him?
Yes.
And he went straight to the Vice Chancellor and said he wanted me to be the Vice Chancellor of his university. And the Vice Chancellor sent for me, and I said I don't want to.
That would have been the 4th one.
Yes, right. I know the problem between Okada and the Oba of Benin, and I don't want to be caught in the crossfire. And in any case, I had no business relationship with Ibinedio. And he kept on sending. I refused. You see, I refused. Because I knew I would have landed into lots of problems. But then he said I should compose the council for him. Those who should be the council, and I did. This young man is something Ikara. I'm sure you remember.
Is it Bashir?
Huh?
Is it Bashir Ikara?
Bashir Ikara. I recommended him to be the chairman, and he became the chairman. And I recommended 1 or 2 people to become members of the council, and he accepted all of them. You see, of course, excluding those from Benin. Yes.
So the local appointees were.
That's right. So he accepted, and after some time, I've decided to take some rest and do some voluntary work here and there. And in the last few years, I was made the pro-chancellor of Nasarawa State University. And the position I'm holding now for the past, I think 2 years or 2.5 years. That's where I have been up to now.
One of your extracurricular activities is the chairperson of the Northern Christian Elders Council.
Yes.
What does that group do, especially given the sometimes fraught relationship between Muslims and Christians in northern Nigeria here?
Well, that is one of our principal objectives, to establish a relationship that will enable us to promote the unity of thoughts and deed across the board. And I'm afraid we have succeeded up to a point. And we have toured many parts of the north, and we made it a bounden duty in the course of touring to visit the emirs, and where applicable, we also visit the governors to let them know what our objectives are. And consequently, that had exposed us to our Muslim friends and brothers. And we have ever since been working together. We were not aiming to convert anybody into Christianity. Neither do we expect that they would also lure some of Christians to become Muslims. But we have confidence that if we work together, we are likely to have a meeting point that will enable us to do certain things differently for the good of our people. So that's the principal objective of that association. And we were fully registered by the body that registered these organizations. And we are still functioning, although I have, for age reasons and for health, ceased to be the president. But it has not made any difference in terms of what we are doing and what we intend to achieve. We have branches all over the country. We have branches all over the country, particularly in the north here. Yes.
Many of the elderly Christians in the north speak well of the period of 1960s, Ahmadu Bello as a leader. Sometimes one wonders, is this nostalgia? What is the reality of this period? How different is it from what we are having now? And why those differences?
You mean Ahmadu Bello as a person?
As a period, no, his government. That period where the North seemed to be much more united, the policies seem to apply equally to everybody. People comment and say, look, now things are different. There is maybe more discrimination, more divisions than that period. So I'm trying to understand, as somebody who has seen that period, what accounts for the differences that we hear?
Sincerity, openness, and no religious discrimination. These are the cardinal issues that guided Ahmadu Bello in running the affairs of the North. Then he was surrounded by men of stature that constituted his cabinet. All of them on first name calling basis. You know, first, and when you get to a point whereby you call one another in your first names, it means you have broken down barriers of communication, and you have belief and trust in one another. That was how Ahmadu Bello handled things. And besides, he also went across the board and stretched his hand of fellowship to Christians, appointing them in his cabinet and giving them positions which we would normally have reserved until his grandson has grown up before he gives it out. So I remember when I was in the Nigerian college, there was a riot in the Nigerian college to the point of I was then president of the Northern Students Association. So the college was to be closed down. And Adamu Baikie left Kaduna and came to Zaria with almost all members of his cabinet. He stayed in the house of a friend on the main road there. I think he was, I don't know, he was either a Lebanese or, anyway, he had a big shop there, and he sent one of his trusted boys to come and scout for northern leaders. And I happened to be one of them. He didn't say, no, you go back because you are a Christian. What struck me about that experience was that when we got there, we all sat with the ministers, Gashash, Abba Habib, Isa Keita, the whole lot of them. He said, we heard what is happening in your college. You should not, for any reason, do anything different from what the students' body decides to do. You should not do anything different from what the students' body decides to do. You should go along with them. We are not training you to be different Nigerians. We want you to behave and act like Nigerians. And when we were to leave the place, she gave us about 2 or 3 pounds. At that time, 2 or 3 pounds. Don't ask me what happened to those. So that's Adamu Baikie. You see, that's Adamu Baikie. And when you begin, therefore, to talk about how have things changed, who are the leaders? When you have people, well, Isa Keita, this man of Masca, then you have this very tough man from Zaria here. I've forgotten his name. Then you have people like Ohikere from Kaba, you know, and Abba Habib from Borno. Oh, I mean, then you have homegrown permanent secretaries in the ministries, people like Ahmadu Kumasi, you know, and people like that, Dr. Diko. I mean, they were working as brothers. They didn't show any sign that I had to go and swear an affidavit to prove that I was from Kano. You see, so that I can. It didn't take me 5 minutes to get that done in Kano. And they didn't ask me, but your name is Baikie and you are a Christian. How come you are from Kano? No.
So you are saying the problem we have now all comes down to the poor quality of leadership.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
How do we fix that?
I think so. I was listening to a discussion a couple of days ago about how to produce leadership. The people are missing the point. That's the way they are talking about leadership. That's not how to produce leadership. You know? And when you think about the days of Kennedy, you see, Eisenhower was the supreme commander of Allied forces in Europe. It was from there he was elected president of the United States. And his running mate was Richard Nixon, who was a senator then. And when Eisenhower retired, Nixon and Kennedy contested, but Kennedy was already a senator. You see, so you have to, it's not a question of opening a school to produce leaders. You have to attract the young ones into the party hierarchy and then encourage them, you know, to go up the step and get elected into position. They are into Senate or House of Representatives. It is there that they will blossom. And the quality of leadership will begin to show in them. And even if they don't ask for it, you have already identified them as potential leaders, and they can replace you when the time comes. Kennedy was only 41 when he was elected president, and at one time they were arguing against him being a president because he was a Catholic.
True.
You see? Because he was a Roman Catholic. That one phased out. And he won by only about 100,000 votes. You see? And of course, his leadership was legendary. So if you don't attract these young people to the extent of supporting them to, you know, take on elective posts and let them show their mettle and prove themselves, you cannot get any leader. It's not a question of having people together and begin to, no. It's a question of grooming. You see, it's a question of grooming. And you don't identify people in advance. You let the people identify themselves by their performance. You have about 10, 20 of them in a place together. One will be the star. And then you begin to walk around him, you know. So leadership is the issue. Right now, the elders of parties don't want to hear any news about being replaced. We don't want to hear anything about being replaced. But and they are not there in order to be of service. They are there to feather their nests and to continue to be, you know, play the old tunes that you can neither dance to or even listen to. And in the meantime, the youth don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to get into the system and make a dent. But that is the only way to do it. Encourage them, push them, and let them become vocal in political issues, national issues, and you begin to see signs of the potential in them as leaders. How did John Major become a prime minister? What of this man who is now Boris Johnson?
Yes.
Who heard about him before? How did he become a prime minister today?
So you are given this advice on TV. I always ask distinguished elders like you, are you being consulted by the present leadership, either at the state level or federal level?
No.
Are they consulting you to say, look, we have a problem, can you advise us?
No, of course not. I am not an outspoken political pundit. So I'm not relevant. Boris, he got the opportunity and contested to be the mayor of London.
True.
And he proved himself. You know, a young man. Then that lady who fell out, what is her name?
Theresa May.
That's right. Picked him as a deputy. They both contested and won the election. But then she fell out because she couldn't deliver. It was too much for her.
Yeah.
So time came for the Conservative Party to look for a leader. They said, oh, but this man has performed. And he's a young man. All others are old. So let's bring Boris Johnson. That's it.
Yeah. So you subscribe to the idea that we should really look for leadership in the younger generation
Yes,
now.
absolutely.
Yeah, which
Yes, yes, absolutely.
yeah. So on a personal note, I want to ask you, how does it feel to be 90? How is your day? How do you cope with the challenges of time?
Well, you know, I thank God for all that He has enabled me to do and achieve. But I wasn't looking forward to it. I have a disbelief that I was getting to 90. And I just kept on wondering how I'll manage myself at that age. Is it really true that I'm approaching 90? But for the, graciousness of God and the support of friends and my children and grandchildren, I probably would have folded up in one form or the other. But it feels good to, grow as old as 90 and still be able to sit and talk with you like this.
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful to God.
Absolutely. But I must say that we all feel the loss of your wife, or your companion.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure that's probably one of the major things you will miss about being this age without her.
Yes, thank you very much for that observation. And I must say that I miss her a great deal. I miss her a great deal because we were husband and wife, quite all right, but we were also very good friends. We lived in the same area. Her mother, who was actually her aunt, was my mother's good friend. And they were all of Muslim background, but the aunt became a Christian. And it was through the influence of her aunt that my mother became a Christian, because my mother was married to my father for pretty close to 50 years, and she remained a Muslim. She remained a Muslim, but she decided finally one day that she has been attending the church with the children, Then she decided that she was going to be a Christian. Maybe through the influence of my wife's great aunt. So we were one family, and that indeed helped tremendously in beating things to shape for me, as well as for her. Her entire family in the village are all Muslims, and they still are today. We go there for Salah, they come here for Christmas. So that particular aspect of my wife bringing us together has been of tremendous help to us, because we have proved very many people wrong about Christian-Muslim relationship. You see, we have proved them very, very wrong. And I think that village is unique. In the whole villages you can find in and around Kano. That is where you find the Christians.
What's the name of the village?
Dosei.
Dosei.
I don't know if you remember the year that
Oh, the plane crash?
Plane crash.
Yes,
It's
yes,
exactly on those.
Yes, I did.
Exactly on those.
Yes.
I mean, in fact, the mosque built by Abacha, it was in the shape of an aeroplane. It's still there.
Yes.
That's the village of my wife. You see, so it's incredible. It's an incredible relationship. You see, and so if she had been alive, she would have been 80, because I was just difference of about 10 years. But I can't forget her.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Well, may God rest her, and I also want to wish you a long life and good health.
Thank you very much.
And continuous service to education and to your fatherland.
Thank you very much indeed.
Viewers, we have been speaking to Professor Adamu Baikie, who many of you know is a distinguished professor of education who has served, from what he has just said, really a very unique and vast areas in education in this country. We wish him the very best and thank you for this opportunity to go over his life.
Thank you so very much.
Yes. And until we meet on another edition of Reminiscences, thank you.